Hey everyone, welcome to HR Tech Talks. I am Ben Eubanks, your host. So glad to have you here with us and looking forward to a great conversation today. We were actually riffing before we started out about passion for our space, about passion for people, passion for HR as a topic and a conversation, but also for the people that we get to serve every day. And so we'll try to wrap that into the conversation as part of the discussion today, because I think you'll hear my story from the beginning of my career when I committed to that. You'll hear from Derek from LifeGuides. You'll hear his story on how he was like, absolutely, this is what I want to be. This is what I want to do. And so without any further ado, I'll go ahead and bring him on, because we're going to talk about coaching. We're going to talk about life, talk about guiding your employees and caring about them on a personal level and connecting with them and giving them resources, and not just assuming that everything is okay and that they've got everything they need and that they're just going to, carry on. They're going to be able to have the resources they need. So we're going to talk about that as part of the discussion. So Derek, welcome, sir. Glad to have you.
Thank you, Ben. I'm really honored to be with you today. And It was a fun conversation to start it off.
I know. Goodness, I realized we were like a minute over starting the live show because I'm over here having some fun with you. So before we get into some of those things I was teasing up, would you take a second and tell us a little more about who you are and what you do, sir?
Sure. So I'm Derek Lundsten, President and CEO of LifeGuides PBC. We're a public benefit corporation, and we have built a technology platform that's designed to connect people for the purpose of mentorship, support, sharing empathy and wisdom in the context of whatever life experience, challenge, or growth opportunity may be facing someone. So simply imagine someone who's going through an experience or challenge. Could be becoming a new parent, a cross-country job change, or losing a loved one. Someone else has been through that same experience. And by using our technology, we optimize people finding those guides, those mentors, so they can connect and work through the opportunity most effectively, better resourced, and more healthily. That's what we do at LifeGuides.
You know what's funny? I'd say this, I might sound like a broken record to the audience that listens in regularly, but one of the things that I firmly believe is that the tools, technology we use, sometimes they do get in the way, they distance us from people, but sometimes they allow us to come together because they're there to facilitate a better connection, a deeper connection. And that's the sense that I'm getting from you, right? It's not just about let's put this thing in place so we can have some proxy for communication, but let's put this in place to build deeper relationships and deeper. You use the word empathy, right? You used connection in your intro there.
Yes, that's exactly right, Ben. So, 4 years ago, I had been one of the early investors in the company. And what I felt at the time was that we are in the business of empathy, right? That our job is to help people find the support that they need, the mirror of each other, to help each other on the path of healing, of growth, of connection. And that was all happening prior to the events of the last year and a half, right? That we were working on this, and recognizing that the worlds of life and work were becoming more blended, and that the whole self, the whole person, was becoming the zeitgeist of where we're going. And then the pandemic happened, and it brought the awareness of the entire world to the unexpected, the connectivity, the fragility of where we all are, and the fact that we desire and we see each other in ourselves, and that relationship is really at the core of what we do, even in the context of business.
You mentioned there in the discussion that you were an investor before you became the president, right? Before you became CEO. Why this? There's a million things out there, right? There's all kinds of cool tools in our space. There's any direction you could point yourself into and find something because you've got like boundless passion. It feels like it's like you could put that in any direction. Why this direction? Yeah.
So before I was building LifeGuides, I had been the CEO of a learning technology company called Scrimmage, which was all about helping people educate and be most fulfilled in their career, right? And helping them grow. And so there's a natural innate desire in that. But when I first heard about the idea of LifeGuides, the phrase that actually caught my attention was the idea of reducing human suffering and optimizing for human potential, right? So beyond just work, but how do we actually come together to create a better, more sustainable world, right? How do we help people find their purpose, their passion, their driver in life, and how do we help them move past whatever inhibitors are to helping them live their best life? And that connected with me, frankly, on a soul level, on a purpose level. And it felt like the type of question that I could spend my life working on, right, and helping people. And that's what attracted me to this idea. And it's just continued to invite me, so to speak, to use this platform as a way to influence change and to help people find each other and to find themselves through their work, through their life, through their challenges, through opportunities, and just make a better world. And it feels really, really timely and relevant now, and bringing kind of those values to life. And through what's happening, I really think we're going through a transformation around what's possible right now.
Yes. So I want you to walk us through for a second, like a persona, an individual. Okay. Let's say a company's got this in place and they're about to start coming back into the office or some hybrid model, and they've got an employee who's kind of stressed about that or trying to figure out how to make that work or make that fit around all their family stuff. How would that person make use of LifeGuides in order to help them with the kind of questions they have?
It's a perfect example of what we're seeing, Ben. So imagine a member, and keep in mind when we offer this technology to our partners, we offer this as an enterprise tool. Both the employee, or actually the employee, and all the adults in their home have access to the service, right? So to be clear, so because we're supporting families, right? We're supporting the community. And so they can come on, they can choose from their profile a few different topics. So to your point, they're stressed about return to office. They're stressed about managing their kids' remote schooling or hybrid schooling. They're concerned about managing health. They're concerned about balancing their time. And they can put all those different kind of details into their profile. And then the software, based on that profile, will then serve up a series of people who match with those skills and with those attributes, right? That they themselves have been maybe homeschooling their children, or they themselves have balanced demands of having multiple jobs and family members, and they have experience, or they might be experts in stress management and breathing and meditation techniques, for example. All those types of people exist as guides in the platform. Some of them are social workers and counselors. Some are physicians and lawyers. Some are executives and HR executives. Some are retirees and stay-at-home parents. All those people are guides in our platform. And so the idea is that the employee or the member can choose to interact with any or all of those guides to gather those experiences and those lessons and help find their own answers, right? They're using the sounding board, they're using the empathy for the benefit of themselves. And then the cool part is those members can also become guides, right? Those people can share their own experiences and pay it forward and serve others on their path, right? So it's really creating this reciprocal service model beyond just getting support, you're giving support. It's creating this gifting model of care and inclusion and belonging.
I'm running to the quotes, right? If you want to go far or if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together, right? That's the first thing that comes to me as I'm thinking about, because this is just like there's one perfect person out there that's going to have all the answers that I don't have, and they're just going to bequeath them to me. But everybody has a different slice of the life that I'm trying to live. And if they have those different perspectives to add in, right, I'll still make mistakes. I'm still going to fall down. But if I can scrape my knee a few less times, if I can have someone else there with a helping hand to hear me out or to give me advice when I'm in a difficult situation, that seems like the perfect blend of all those kind of things coming together.
Completely agree with that summary, Ben. That's exactly what we do.
Oh, that is awesome. So we're talking about all this personal and all this fluffy stuff, if you'll forgive me for the statement, like fluffy stuff in the HR side of things. Right? We want to talk about they don't teach you about hugs and caring for employees in HR school, by the way. So I want to hear from you on the flip side. Let's say someone's listening in and they're a little more like data driven. They're a little more like they're thinking, I've got to prove this matters, or I'm going to try to show how this impacts the organization. What are you using to try to measure success? How are you showing that this leads to an impact? Because I can make some guesses there about what those might be, but I'm curious what you're seeing.
Yeah, so to that exact point, we are measuring the success in cohorts and in kind of study that we're working on. We're actually looking at the effect of having a guide, of total well-being, of looking at the whole person, supporting the whole person where they are, and the effect that has on various top and bottom line metrics, right? So looking at from a person level, their level of engagement, their level of productivity, their level of job satisfaction, their level of commitment to their employer, their level of skills development and mastery, their level of stress relative to their performance, their relative of supporting their teammates. All of those different elements in the context of people management and people support, we believe and we know there's already data out there that supports that when you do that, it leads to better businesses. I mean, so that's very clear. I mean, and you can use Firms of Endearment, right, as a book of reference that talks about that as a starting point. But then taking a step further, beyond just the soft elements of being more connected, we know that it's going to create higher performance. It's going to create more revenue. It's going to create greater profitability. It's going to create a better customer experience. It's going to create a better brand experience. It's going to create more loyalty, both for teams and customers. And when you're talking about the entire family, you're talking about that trickling out to communities, and you're creating an entire ecosystem of prioritizing. And so that's the simple answer on how we're measuring it. And so we're enrolling our larger customers into these research studies where we're looking over the course of 2 years. We're isolating different metrics, like their wellness indices, like their business outcomes, like their engagement scores. And we're showing the value, both quantitatively and qualitatively, that LifeGuides is having on total well-being, individual performance, and business performance. And then the last thing, which is, I think, the big opportunity, is how does it shift how we look at people philosophically, right? How does it look that can we actually change the value equation? It's not just about maximizing revenue and profits, but if we actually look at our total employee health, our total employee productivity, their family's health and well-being as a metric of our performance, how does that change the interactions as leaders? How does that change the interactions between our team? How does that same empathy kind of start to percolate out through the organization, and we start to do better by each other, right? That's the real work that we're doing. I said to you, what's the work here? That's the real work that we're doing, right?
You just reminded me the very last webinar that I did last year before the world kind of turned upside down. I did a webinar with a group of people around the CEO roundtable that had come out with their big announcement, like, profit's no longer the most important thing for us. It's the people, because the people lead to the profit. And that's the thing I'm hearing here, right? It's those two things can't be exclusive of each other. If we only care about one, the other will suffer. If we all, and the flip side is true, right? If we only focus on, let's just keep the nest comfy and never stress anyone and we can't push them, well, then we'll never be able to serve our customers well, because it'll be too cushy over here. So we've got to find the right balance. It's always a kind of a tug of war to figure out where that right point is. But I love the idea that you're sharing there, that this is not just about the people side of it, although that matters, and that matters a heck of a lot. It's also about what there's value here for the business. This is an investment in the future success of the workforce, especially in the kind of talent-driven economy we're in right now. Like, this is a chance to say, hey, we have a competitive differentiator. We are beating them because we care for our people more than they do.
Yeah, and not just we say we care, but we're showing that we care. We're showing you value. And to your point, just caring does not make you soft, right? You can still be a high performance, have the hard conversation. You grow through challenge. You grow through extending. You elevate people's capabilities and their potential, and you can still care for them, right? There's the combination of nurturing them so that they can find their own gifts, and then you give them the resources and the training and the leadership that allows them to move and grow and help the entire business ecosystem evolve.
This morning at breakfast, I was talking to my wife about that exact thing. Like, those things aren't mutually exclusive. In college, I had someone who had gone through ahead of me, and I said, hey, recommendations on professors who should be looking at. And he's like, stay away from this person, because they are like tough as nails, and they grade like they're really tough. And I go and look, and that's the person that teaches 2 of the 3 HR courses. I'm like, well, so I'm going to have a hard time avoiding this person. But when I get in there, I find out, like, they have high expectations, but they're also very clear, and they are great at coaching you, and they're willing to help you. And so I actually walked away thinking, like, that was one of the best experiences I had. Not one of the worst, because they were very clear about what they needed, and they cared when they found out, like, I was going to HR. They were super passionate and excited to share their story with me and find out how they can help. And so, like, those things don't have to be on opposite ends of the spectrum. Although we sometimes want to put that in our head that you can't be both. I say the best HR people are the story I usually tell: data driven, people oriented. Right? Those two things are incredibly, incredibly important.
Yes.
Okay, so going through my list of here, because I have like all these cool things I want to ask you about.
Sure.
I teased up a little bit at the beginning. This idea is, like, you and I are, for better or for worse, idealistic. Right? We have this very positive vision of what the workplace can and should be. Yeah. And I was telling you, I'll tell mine really. You start with your story really quick, and then I'll tell mine to back that up.
Yeah, so I'll just share this. So you were sharing with me. Well, I think it's better. I'll share it. So I early on in my career, I had I was working for this organization, and I went in and I was sharing some feedback with the HR manager at the time about my perspective on what was happening in the organization. And she kind of just looked at me and said, no, I can tell you're really passionate and you're really idealistic, and that's great. And that's just the way it is with young people. But eventually you'll kind of get a grip on reality. And I kind of just looked at her and I thought to myself, I hope I don't ever look at it that way, because that's just if that's the attitude of this is just the way it is and you need to adapt, maybe this isn't for me. Right. And so then it set me on the path of how do I create a better, more purposeful, passion-filled, recognition-oriented business world, right? That started seeding me on the way, right? And so that kind of tied in with your story, which I'll tackle that to you then.
Again, very similar connection to yours. And for those listening in, by the way, if you've got a story where someone's told you you're a little too passionate, you're a little too idealistic, you're a little bit too positive for HR, pop that in the chat really quick so I can see that, because I'll be curious to know if that's happened to anybody else out there. I didn't know that this was apparently like a common thing. Years ago, first HR job I ever had, I was sitting there, I was telling someone about how excited I was and how I had this vision for what our function could be, what it could do for the people we were serving. I have always had that kind of service mindset of like, we're not just here to process the paperwork, we're here to serve these people. And those individuals and the people behind that, right? Their families, like you mentioned earlier, this is a bigger impact than just that person who were trading dollars for hours.
Yeah.
And the person was like, kind of like, oh, that's sweet, good for you, because that'll wear off eventually. You'll lose that excitement, you'll lose that passion over time as your career progresses. And I made that commitment right there, just like you, strangely enough. Like, that's never going to happen. If it does, I'll go be a garbage collector and be excited about that. I don't care what it is, but I'll find something to be excited about, because I can't do something I'm not. Life is way too short to do that.
So that's another funny story. That's funny you mentioned that. So I tell this story. I was at a dinner a few years ago, and we were talking about what is your first job. And the first job I ever wanted as a kid was to be a garbage man, right? So I was like 3 years old. My parents told the story, and the reason why was because I used to see these guys drive up the road, right? And I'd wait there, and they'd be riding on the back of the truck, and they'd all be having fun. You could just see that they were having a good time, right? And literally their job was to pick up people's trash, but they were having a fun time. They were hanging out, they were talking with each other, they were enjoying riding on the truck. And I remember sensing that just genuine, they were making the most of it. They were doing their job with pride, and they were having fun. They were really kind to the kids. And I just remember thinking, like, you know what, there's something to that. And as I've matured and gotten older and I've looked at other job opportunities, that's still at the core about something that I want to bring to my work, to my life, and something I want to teach my children and teach other children. Like that, there's something about being just naturally present and having fun in what you're doing, and making and doing the best at whatever it is you're doing, even if it's a trash collector, even if it's being an HR professional, even if it's being a leader of any kind, right? I think that's a really important distinction.
When I asked you before we started recording, for everybody, here's the behind the scenes look. I asked you how you describe your company, and you gave me this explanation there. And one of the words you use is you talked about the relationship, not just like, again, you're not just an employee for us, but this is a real relationship where there's kind of a give and take with an employer. And I'd be curious to you, if you could, my magic wand's missing, right? I can't find it, but if you could wave your magic wand and say, these are the employment relationships that everyone has. Here's what they would look like if they were healthy, if they were working. How would you describe that, right? Any words you could use to describe what that relationship looked like, or that sort of dynamic there where it would be a true relationship and not just right, we just got our thumb on you, or we're just controlling you, or you're here beholden to us. But how would you describe that?
Yeah, it's authentic, right? There's openness, there's a level of vulnerability. It's become an overused word, but there's an acknowledgement of our natural humanness, that we don't have all the answers, that we're all working for our own experience of life, both personally and professionally, and that we're all on that same path of mastery and learning and growing, right? No matter where you are in the organization. And that level of just acceptance, a radical acceptance of each other, and then seeing that presence in each other, and then committing to helping that person live their best life, living their highest purpose, to live their greatest strength, not in all aspects of who they are, their work life and their family life, as a parent, as a friend, as a contributor, finding what lights them up and supporting that on their journey, and then getting people together focused on a mission that complements each other's skills and what we're doing. That's what it is. Like, people should be able to come to work and feel alive, very literally. To your point, it's not, and I think we're going to see that right now. I mean, there's the whole thing right now about the Great Resignation. Why is that happening? Because people do not feel acknowledged. They do not feel embraced. They do not feel supported. They do not feel like they're a person. They feel that they're a resource. And I know in HR we talk about that, and that's true to a point. But we're people. We are. Everyone brings their gifts, their talents, their skills, their ideas, their perspectives, their flaws, and being able to merge all that and stir that and mold that. That's our responsibility. That's what we're here to do, and then to find the right causes and reasons and values to do it. That's why else. What else is the point, right? As I look at it.
I often say that we sometimes as organizations treat like the office equipment and the furniture, we give that more due diligence than we do the actual people, because we're like, oh, we know when this was bought, we know how much it cost, we know how much we'd appreciate it and all these things. But like, oh yeah, we hired that person 4 years ago, and like no one's really talked to them ever since. We don't know what they need from us, or we haven't spent any time with them to help them level up their skills, or they're just there. And so we sometimes don't treat people with that same dignity or respect or empathy, as you mentioned earlier. I love that word. Those kind of things that we need to. By the way, not to derail this too much, but actually we had some comments come in from people. Jen Day said she's been told many times like her ideas are too big or that won't work. Right? We don't do that here. Nathan said we'll beat it out of you sooner or later. That whole like excitement and passion for things. He hasn't lost it yet, he said. So thumbs up, Nathan, on that one. And Tamadia said that's a real thing. So other people out there seeing that same thing, experiencing that same thing as you and I have throughout our career. And hopefully all of you listening and are hearing it here, like you don't have to give that up. It's not something you have to trade off or have to lose.
No.
You don't want to. Choose not to. Choose to hold on to it. Okay. So goodness gracious. I feel like I want to ask you like 50 more questions, and I know we're getting kind of close on the time.
All good, Ben.
I think one of the big things I want to ask you is, I talk to companies often, and when it comes to like talent, when it comes to comp, when it comes to some degree benefits, people are like, yeah, we know what the value is there, we know what's important there. And you talked a little bit about some of the metrics you're looking for, some of the KPIs companies should be attaching to their well-being and their wellness initiatives. But I'm curious why you think that still feels less mature, or it still feels like it's a harder sell to leadership when we're like, hey, we've got an idea, and it's not in recruiting, it's not in learning, but it's over here in terms of the well-being of our people. Why is that sometimes seen with a different perspective from leaders outside of HR than some of these other kinds of things?
I think there's a few different elements. I mean, I think that part of it goes with the people that, to your point, back to this point around HR professionals, that some of them started off idealistic, and then they've been worn down, right? And their job is to manage risk. Right? Their job is to manage the compliance of certain policies. They're being tasked with kind of continuing to operate the system in a way that has been from, well, call it older model, right? And now we're being, and this is I would say one of the biggest, what will become one of the best benefits over the last year of this pandemic and all the associated challenges will be that everyone has been forced to confront that the old benefits, the old systems, the old models of providing for our people are no longer adequate, right? We have to redo it. We have to reevaluate it. And that is why I think, part of it is that people have been conditioned. Our profession has been conditioned to manage their business line or their functional area to support the needs of an outdated model of business. And if we change the value and the priority of people as a component of, are we running a successful company, right? If you're running a successful company, quote unquote, that is crushing it on your financial metrics, but doing terrible on your people's well-being, you're not a successful company. And people are waking up to that. They're waking up to that. And that's what's happening now, is that people are asking to be treated and such. It's not just enough to like, give me a job. Like, we want to contribute. We want well-being. We want the welfare of our families to be considered. And that's good. We're having a conversation. And the opportunity here is to say, because people there's resistance, there's stress. It's been a challenging time. And so the opportunity now is to continue to lean into that. Continue to lean in and listen to each other more now, right? Because people are so fatigued and tired. People just want to turn it off. And the reality is now is the time we need to go even further and say, what do we need to do? How do I need to lead? What do my people really need? What's going to set them up for success in the next decade? What are the changes that are continuing to kind of confront us that we need to be prepared for? And how do we include people in that? That's what creates a true anti-fragile company, right? You use that book that's out there, anti-fragile. Like that's what it's about. It's not just about resilience. It's about literally creating a system and an organization, a people model that allows people to fluidly adjust and to know that they're part of that living thing, right? Anyway, I'm really on my soapbox this morning, Ben. You got me going.
All fired up.
Yeah.
That's a good place to be, right? That's a good place to be. One of the things that I think is so important there, I'm glad you touched on some of those things, because I feel like I've said this like a broken record in the last year, but like if you're going to make a change, if you're going to try to go all in, this is your time, because everything else that we just assumed has been upended. And so this is the time to say, hey, you know what? We thought this was true. It's not. Let's go and let's try something different. And one of the other discussions that you and I have had on previous conversations is the importance of not just taking this on ourselves as HR leaders, because we're the ones we're the first ones to say, yep, I'll sign up for something extra and more difficult and just more onerous just to save someone else the stress. Like, this doesn't have to be all on your shoulders. As Derek has pointed out here in the conversation to everybody else out there, I mean, there are resources, there are coaches, there are guides in their terminology that can help do these things. So it's not all on us to make sure every person is taken care of. That is, you take your cape off for a second, right? We can't be superheroes every day, because sometimes we're the ones that need that support. We need that help.
Yeah.
So we're coming close on our time here, Derek. If someone is interested in LifeGuides and the work that you and the team are doing, the customers you're serving, they just want to know more, what's the best way for them to connect and do that?
Yeah, lifeguides.com is our website. We're also on all the different social media channels. We produce a lot of content. I'm available. My email is Derek, DEREK, at lifeguides.com as well. And our team is available to answer questions, and we'd love to. And to your, just to comment, Ben, one of our first slide decks, we actually had that exact image. We had a superhero with their cape and talked about the responsibility and just caring for themselves, and also being able to have the resources to care for others, and how to do that. So it's really interesting you brought that up. I don't think I ever shared that with you.
I don't think so either. Again, I think we're in sync on some of these things. Before I wrap it up, I just want to give you a quick congrats to everybody out there that doesn't know Derek personally. They're about to have their next baby in line, and so I just want to give you a quick congrats on that. This is the last time we'll see you fresh and smiling, and for at least for a little while. You'll come back to that, but it'll take you'll have to kind of snap back. So I appreciate your conversation, your insights, your time today. Thank you for hanging out with us on HR Tech Talks. I appreciate it.
It was a pleasure. Thanks, Ben.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. To everybody else, I hope you enjoyed the conversation. We had some great comments. Thank you, Melinda, Nathan, Tamadia, Jinde. Thank you all for hanging out with us, for sharing, for asking, or for chiming in alongside the discussion today. I hope you learned and got some excitement from this discussion with Derek. I know that I have. I'm all pumped up and ready for what's next. So I will catch all of you next week on another episode of HR Tech Talks. Have a great day. Have a great week. The work you're doing is important, has value. And remember, we don't have to go it alone. Have a good one.